Do you really need lots of advanced vocabulary for IELTS speaking? Many students get really confused about this and they use inappropriate vocabulary in the test and so get a low score. Let me show you some appropriate advanced vocabulary and how you should use it. Let's do it. Hello, this is Keith from English Speaking Success and the website The Keith Speaking Academy, where you can find lots of free resources to prepare for IELTS speaking, as well as my online courses. So, what was the question? The question was, do you really need lots of, advanced words and phrases for IELTS speaking? The answer is yes and no. I knew you were going to say that, Keith. Okay, so of course you do need some advanced vocabulary, right? But the biggest mistake students make is this. The above-mentioned problem is laborious and I will be elated when it is in culmination. And really what the student means is, this is a difficult problem and I'll be happy when it has finished. The mistake is the student is trying to fill their sentences with too many advanced and complicated words. And what happens is it makes you sound unnatural and you will probably make lots of mistakes. So in that example, the student said, well, the problem is laborious. Now, laborious does mean difficult, but you can't say a laborious problem. You talk about a laborious job or a laborious task, right? That's difficult. And he also mentions culmination, right? Now, culmination does mean the end, but it means it's the end of a series of events, and the culmination is the last event of a series. So the student is trying to use these complicated words they don't fully understand nor know how to use correctly and make lots of mistakes and get a low score. Ooh. So we need a balance of simple and complex language. We need to sound natural, right? A much better answer would be, this is a tricky problem and I will be happy when it's over. Okay? So remember, right, your vocabulary score is 25% of your IELTS speaking score, right? And you need to show a wide range of vocabulary that includes simple and complex vocabulary, and you need to use it accurately. That's the thing, you must be using it correctly or it can bring down your score. How do you learn to use these words, like the words I'm going to show you today? How do you use them accurately? It's very simple. You practice and you practice until you feel comfortable using them. And if you don't, I would suggest don't use them in the test. So learn, practice, be patient, and step by step, you will build up your vocabulary and become a more confident speaker, which is our goal ultimately, right? So with all of that in mind, let's have a look. Now, I'm going to show you 10 great words and phrases, advanced vocabulary. They are, and I really love these words. I've chosen them because I enjoy using them. They are advanced and I think they will really help you. And what's more, you can use them for any topic in IELTS speaking. How about that? So without any further ado, let's get straight into it. Number 1, to exacerbate. Exacerbate, meaning to make something worse. Collocations, you can exacerbate a problem, exacerbate a situation, or an impact or the effect of something. Now, in IELTS speaking, especially part 3, we often talk about problems, about the size of the problem, how to solve the problem, or maybe make it worse, right? Here's a great example with this word on a recent topic, right? The problem of climate change is exacerbated by people flying too much and creating carbon emissions. Number 2, to mitigate. Mitigate, which means to make less severe or less unpleasant. Okay, collocations, we can mitigate a problem, mitigate the impact or the effect of something, or mitigate someone's suffering. Again, talking about problems, how can we reduce the impacts of different problems? Mitigate. Here's another example. We could mitigate the impact of climate change by flying less. Easy solution. Number 3, unsurmountable. Unsurmountable, which means impossible to solve, right? Collocations, you can have an unsurmountable problem, unsurmountable challenge, or a barrier. So again, talking about problems in IELTS speaking that may be very difficult or even impossible to solve, you could say, although climate change is a challenging problem, it's not unsurmountable. We can solve it. Notice what I did. I used a negative to express my idea, right? It's not unsurmountable. It's not impossible, meaning it's possible, right? Okay, moving on. Number 4, an uphill struggle, meaning something is difficult and challenging, but still possible. We can use this to talk about a task, a project maybe, or even a game. I love this expression because I used to live at the top of a hill and I always used to think it was so difficult to get back home. Of course, this is a more abstract metaphorical meaning, right? Meaning something is very difficult. We could use it in the following context. Writing my new book has been an uphill struggle, so I will be thrilled when it's finished. Number 5, apprehensive. Apprehensive, which means you're worried or nervous about a future result or something coming out bad. In IELTS speaking part 2, we often have to express different feelings, right? They ask you, and how did you feel about this? Apprehensive is a nice one. Here's a possible example. Initially, I was really apprehensive about doing my driving test, but in the end, it turned out really well. Number 6, disgruntled. What a lovely word, disgruntled. This is a feeling, again, and it's a feeling of unhappy, being unhappy and disappointed, and maybe dissatisfied. So again, we've talked about part 2, telling a story, then describing your feelings. Maybe you bought something in a shop, you want to talk about the customer service. You could say, the customer service in that shop was terrible, and in the end, I felt rather disgruntled. Number 7, bewildered. Bewildered, meaning confused. Collocations are thoroughly bewildered, to be utterly bewildered, to be bewildered by something. So here we're with our feelings again, where we may be confused by something. An example here might be, I was utterly bewildered by my friend's decision to quit his high-paid job. Number 8, to do my utmost, which means to try my best. Now, in IELTS speaking, especially part 3, we sometimes are asked about the government, right? Do you think the government should? Is it a good idea for the government to? So here, this is great because you could use an expression like this. For example, the government have produced a good economic plan, and I am sure they will do their utmost to implement it. Nice. Notice we can say to do my utmost, you do your utmost, and they, the government, do their utmost. Great. You could say, because the government, sometimes it's used as a plural noun, sometimes as a singular noun, you could say the government will do its utmost to implement the plan. Moving on. Number 9, inept. Another lovely sound. Inept. Which means to be inept means you're not good at your job or you show a lack of skill at doing something. Collocations, we can have very inept, rather inept, totally inept, politically inept, or socially inept. If you're not very good at socializing, you're socially inept. And to be inept at something. We may want to describe the government as inept. It sometimes happens, right? Or maybe we're talking about another common topic, work, and your boss. You might say, my boss likes to design his own PowerPoints, right? But between you and me, he's rather inept at it. Number 10, impeccable. Another lovely word, impeccable. Impeccable, meaning, well, perfect or without fault. Apparently, it comes from the Latin im, meaning not, peccare, meaning to sin. So without sin, being perfect, right? Collocations, you can talk about an impeccable job, to do an impeccable job, right? To do a task very well. Impeccable behavior, impeccable manners, when you behave very well. Even impeccable English, when you speak perfect English. So you could say, my friend has lived in America and she speaks impeccable English. So there you have 10 of my favourite words and phrases that will help you build up your confidence and your vocabulary whilst speaking English. Remember to go for that balance between simple and complex vocabulary when speaking and trying to sound natural, okay? With these words, do practice until you feel comfortable using them. Step by step, build up and become a more confident speaker. If you want more help, go and check out the website, the Key Speaking Academy. And if you want to ace the IELTS speaking test, go and check out my online course, IELTS Speaking Success. Get a Band 7 Plus Gold. There are exam strategies, practice exercises, quizzes, hundreds of idioms and expressions, fun and engaging videos. There's the 2 live lessons a month. There's the Facebook private group. It goes on and on. Find out more in the links below in the description. And if it's right for you, go ahead. In the meantime, stay positive, my friend. Keep practicing, and I will see you very, very soon. All the best. Bye-bye.